The camera anyways.
Hello, welcome to this Wednesday 10 at 10. I'm Spencer, Spencer Koppel. I am a digital strategist here at KeyMedia Solutions.
And I'm Madison Mead. I am an account coordinator, and you've probably heard our spiel a few times, so we'll save you the whole thing, but we do some important and fun client work here at KeyMedia Solutions.
Yeah. So we'll kind of give a few minutes for people to fill in and whatnot. So today's going to be kind of a little different from our usual social media kind of chat. We're going to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout this whole process, be sure to add them in the chat. We'll try to get to them as best as we can. But it should be pretty exciting because, it's a little change up from our usual template on how we do these.
Yeah, and then we got a couple questions beforehand, and we also decided to write down some questions that have come up in our social media practice lately, like in the real world, and just kind of some questions we thought would be helpful to share. So before we get into the Q&A, we figured we'd just kind of give a couple of social media updates and news as we typically do, but we'll just start at the top with that as people kind of roll in.
Yeah, for sure. You want to give a few minutes, or are we good to go, you think?
If we want, I think we can kind of just maybe do some of the news updates that we've got for the day and start there.
Awesome. So a little bit less crazy than usual. I think last month or whenever we did this, there was a lot of changes going on with TikTok and whatnot. It's kind of simmered down a little bit. And I mean, sometimes no news is good news. So a little less this week, but it's still kind of interesting. So my bits of information: Threads, which is Meta's basically clone of Twitter or X, has reached 350 million active users, which is pretty crazy. I think it launched like maybe a year and a half ago. So for 350 million users, it's a pretty good amount. Mostly for active users, that means people that are actively on that actual platform itself. And then kind of Madison usually is the one that talks about Reddit, but I saw this little bit of information. I thought it was interesting. So Reddit is now up to 108 million daily active users, adding almost 7 million more compared to the last report. So there is some good growth there on Reddit. Overall, pretty just interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited. I love my Reddit. I'm excited that it's slowly making its way. I don't think it will ever be, a regular contender with Meta, but it's definitely got its own unique little space in the social media world. I think it's interesting. I never really thought that Threads would get that big. I think it definitely went through a little bit of a plateau period, or maybe even a drop off. But it's definitely resurged. I've noticed that their integration with Instagram, I haven't seen it on Facebook, but do you see the little Threads previews? Yeah. God, they're so good at getting the ones there that I'm going to click on.
Well, and I wonder how
oh my God, the most shocking thing happened and then and then you have to click
I wonder how much of it, I wonder if they do include those as that's an active user. So if I'm on Instagram and I'm looking and I see that, does that count as an active user? They didn't say anything in the article about it, but it might also be an interesting thing. It's we have 350 million people on. Some of them are on Instagram, but it's kind of
I would believe Meta would do that. That seems
who knows.
But let us know too if you use let us know in the chat at all if you use Threads. We're curious, are you one of those active users? And then a little bit of news on TikTok as well. Not a major update. I'm sure it's not shocking to anyone. The ban, I can't remember. It's still in effect. We still have quite a ways to go in the newest ban on TikTok extension. Trump has announced that he will continue that ban if there's no buyers. So I think it's becoming a little less of an aggressive ban of TikTok. And it seems to be that the administration anyways is in support of it. So I think that I can almost, I'm wondering if it's going to fizzle, if the ban is just going to fizzle over time. But anyway, and I don't think TikTok is going anywhere. That's kind of our latest update, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think it definitely is something that's a little bit on the back burner for them. So who knows at this point.
Yeah, I think the big thing is we kind of scared by, or not scared, but we kind of upset a ByteDance, and they're like, well, we don't really have to be here then. And I think now they're kind of rolling back a little bit, wait. So we'll see how that goes. But like Spencer said, if you have any questions about anything social media related, even if it seems silly to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat, or if you're watching this after, still drop it in the comments and we'll get back to you. We prepared some questions, but we're really we'll take priority with any that pop in the chat first.
Yep, and that includes influencer questions. If you have any back end, like if you want to kind of know what's going on behind the scenes with influencer marketing and whatnot, feel free to drop those comments in the comments as well.
That is something that is a good segue. I think I'm going to throw this as a question that's come up and that I'm not prepared for, but I've had a lot of people wondering lately what UGC is, user generated content. Is really on the rise. And I think I just want to one thing I want to say about that is I think a lot of people think that user generated content is like really expensive. It's the same as getting an influencer and it's not accessible. It's a really, really good outlet for small businesses.
Mhm.
And that is just, you can even do product review photos. If somebody on your is posting about a product of yours already online, you can use that video. You can reach out to them. On TikTok, there's like a way that they have a platform to just automatically use that in your advertising. But you can use videos that people are already making about your brand and product and use that in your advertising. I think sometimes people don't realize that some of the ads they're getting are once people already posted and they're just then got brought in as an ad.
Yep.
Mhm. Anything else you want to add on UGC?
No, I think a lot of companies don't realize that even smaller accounts can be super impactful
Mhm.
for user generated content. So even though it might not have the same amount of volume as followers, sometimes the smaller accounts have a lot more of a niche and a lot more like audience that actually responds to their comments, and it feels a lot more homegrown rather than a large account. And that's something to kind of consider with if you're trying to market with UGC.
Yeah, I'm all about micro influencers. I think that there's a lot more brand trust, I think, too, with accounts that have a little less following
For sure.
sometimes with their, yeah. But perfect. So let's just go really basic. How do you think social media can help a business?
Brand identity. I think that's probably the biggest for me. I think brand identity is probably one of the biggest things of being like this, being able to go on your social media, not only share the content, but also be able to relate it within your daily life. When I'm scrolling on TikTok or I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see, let's say Taco Bell, for example, I recognize that brand and I'm influenced by that brand. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is just having that brand. I feel like a lot of the reason that I'm going to keep on going Taco Bell because I'm a big fan. Uh,
Yes.
I feel like a lot of the reason that they're, such a big force is social media, them being able to announce new products on there. They kind of have a little bit more of a flowing kind of not super professional kind of, it's a little bit more whimsical kind of. And I think just having that brand recognition is super important.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite ways are my favorite fast food advertisers are Wendy's. Wendy's is sassy and
Oh yeah.
hilarious online. Um, but I wanted to add, I think my favorite part about using social media for business is, at least in the way that we use it, and I see benefiting our clients, is the conversations you can actually have with your audiences. Especially depending on your brand. Some pages don't just get a ton of in-platform action in general. Social media is a great thing to do. It's not always going to be your moneymaker. But we do see some of our clients that fit really well on these platforms get to have conversations with their customers or their users. And I think that's almost invaluable. It's a chance to really just start talking to people.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of a couple questions in one, but I think let's talk about finding the right platform for your business. Should you be on all platforms? How do you decide which ones you should be on?
Depends on what your goal is and depends on what your budget is. I think is the two biggest things. If you're wanting more of like a homegrown kind of just chatting with your followers and whatnot, I think that X, Twitter, Threads, any of those kind of lower, you don't have to put a whole lot of time into it. You can kind of chat. You can obviously post and whatnot. Versus like Instagram and TikTok, I think is the furthest where you'll need video content or image content. I think it just depends on what your actual tactic is, what you're going for, and how big your business is.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. And I think I always tell people I don't think that you have to be on every platform. I think pick 2 to 3. And the biggest thing is beyond just what platform you want to be on, what do you have the capacity to make content for? Do you have a capacity to put out 3 to 4 videos a week? If not, don't make TikTok or don't make TikTok or Instagram reels like your go-to, If you have someone that's really good at graphics, get on LinkedIn and Facebook, and just kind of just be smart about what content you have.
Yeah.
This is one that I will answer because I think I you know this as well. Not to say you don't know this, but
You got it.
um, I'm just kind of combining the questions here into one is one is what is it relevant on what time to post anymore, and then another one is how often should I be posting. And I'm kind of going to put those into two because a big thing that I think that we should all be using in our social media strategy is some kind of platform for posting and automating. Something you can load in your content into for the month and get those posted out. And a lot of those platforms, especially the one we use, and I will share a referral link if anyone's interested in trying it out. But I think the one that we use, it actually knows what time is the best for us to post. We don't have to do any of that work anymore. We used to every month kind of update our chart on what's the best time to post for each client. And now that platform just knows. And if you don't know, I don't think it's worth spending a bunch of time investigating what your best time is. Just post it when you're able. Pay attention to when you get more likes or not, and then kind of stick with that. I don't think you're gonna completely ruin your social media strategy if you're not posting at the exact same time every single day. A lot of the timelines aren't really even what's the word? They're not even time based anymore.
Yeah.
Chronological. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, do you have anything to add on that one? When and how much?
Well, the question was both, right? So it was like, how
Oh
often
yeah,
should you post to?
yeah. I forgot about that one. Yeah, if you want.
So that for how often you should post, kind of similar to like what platforms is what's your content. If your content and being conscious of fatigue, follower fatigue is a big thing. Whereas if you're posting, some people will say up to like 3 to 4 times a day. If you're
Yeah,
constantly posting, it's less likely, depending on the platform, that people will actually see the content itself. So like platforms like Instagram, TikTok, if you're posting a bunch, a lot of people won't see it. Maybe 1 or 2 of them will get actual people looking at it. But sometimes less is more, and it really does depend on what the content is, though. If it's something where people are super attentive, then obviously posting it more, or if it's more like a news kind of thing where stuff is constantly happening, then it makes sense. It really just depends on what your actual content is.
yeah. I think the 3 to 4 posts a day, you'll see that all the time if you look up a blog and how much should I be posting. I think you should only be doing that if you're trying to be an influencer and you want to get a massive following. Otherwise, yeah, it's a thing. You can also be doing it if you want to grow engagement, but yeah, just don't expect to send your messages out a few times before they get seen.
Yep.
I just realized we're going over a little bit on time. So is there any that you really wanted to talk about before we kind of end on our last few?
No, you go ahead.
Um, oh, one more question I think is important before we do our last one. It says how can I increase my social media following organically? I will say that I think that supporting your organic posts with 1 or 2 boosted posts, look at which ones are performing well, send a few dollars up the chain, to boost that. And compound that strategy over time, you will get organic following. That strategy is like tried and true, I think, every time.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think
Mhm.
kind of just like listening to what your audience says. So if
Mhm.
there's one that resonates really well with your audience, how can I kind of recapture that magic that made it, super, that if it went viral, if it went somewhat viral, or it just had a lot of likes, how can I recreate that kind of same feel to it and kind of, move that forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I like that. Recreate that magic is a good thing. We're trying to always do. And then finally, this one is really important, I think. It says, how can I effectively manage a social media crisis or something that doesn't go well online? Do you have anything you want to add on that, Spencer?
Uh, I'll let you talk, and then I'll see if there's
Okay.
anything to add.
Okay, didn't want to just take it away, but I threw that on there because it's something we recently experienced via one of our clients. And I will say it wasn't a crisis, it wasn't major, but anytime a post doesn't go over well, it kind of feels weird off, right? And what had happened is for a certain client, we had tested out an AI post, and the conversation around that was not okay. People were not not the certain people in that community were not cool with AI being used. And we took that as a like, all right, we heard, thank you so much for that feedback. We engaged with those posts. We didn't delete them. We didn't ignore them. You said, thank you so much for that feedback. Made sure to never use, AI again. And that was a big learning moment. And we treated it like that, made sure people knew that we were treating it that way. And so I think that's probably just honesty, recovery, learning is the best way to move forward through times like that.
Yeah. No, kind of going back to the organic thing, I think it's just listening to your audience. Don't blame them if something happens. It's you want to listen, you
Mhm.
want to understand what's happening, and then see how you can potentially alleviate that in the future, kind of thing.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that is a really great point. I just sent out in the chat, if you can see it, a referral link to Cloud Campaign, which is what we use for our social media posting. It's that app that knows what time is the best day to post and all that for us, and it automates posting as well. So if you're interested in that, check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're really good at going over time, so we'll end
Yeah.
it here. But feel free to shoot us any questions anytime. We're always excited to talk about social media. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop in even after the fact or DM us, however you're feeling like you want to get the question to us. Go for it, and we'll talk about it later.